We're recording video.
All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to policy work session. We're going to go ahead and get this meeting started, and it is at 5:30. And let's go ahead and start with flag salute, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of
America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I concentrate on the words and not. Okay, Miss Tammy, please note that we have 5 board members tonight. We'd like to welcome our newest board members, Eric and Kelsey. Welcome.
Look at us go.
Okay, let's just jump in. We're gonna start with 2.0. Miss Anna is gonna do 403B plan update.
Yes, I'm requesting a board approval to the update of our 403B plan, which is our retirement plan for the district. And the reason for that is we are switching third-party administrators. We had a third-party administrator that had a significant data breach, and so we basically looked for a new company, or moving to the new company. In that process, the new company reviewed our 403B plan, just a document, and found some things that needed to be updated, and so they prepared that for us. I actually don't know if this needs board approval, because apparently it's not common for school districts to request board approval on this, but I looked back at all of our previous 403B plan documents back to 2009, and they've always been signed by the board. So I thought, to be safe, we'll bring this to the school board for approval. Do you have any questions on this document?
Nothing's changed other than just switching TPAs.
There are a few changes. Every single change from the old plan or the current plan to the new plan is either to address a change in the form requirements, or to fix an error, or to improve employee options. There's no plan changes in here that take away anything from employees for the school district.
So housekeeping stuff.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
Is this something that has to go through like collective bargaining?
It does not. That's a great question. It's a district, kind of an umbrella type of a benefit that's offered to all employees regardless of whether they're in a collective bargaining group or not.
Okay, oh, I didn't know. Okay, so do you need a motion on this, Anna, then?
Yes, please.
Okay, do we have somebody to make a motion on this?
I move to approve the 403B plan document for public school adoption agreement as presented.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to adopt the 403B plan document for public schools adoption agreement as presented, and a second. Do we have any more discussion? Okay, we're gonna go ahead and do roll call vote, and we'll start with the left over here. Kelsey? Okay, Scott?
Yes. Yes.
And Steve?
Yes.
And yes as well. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
Okay, 3.0 disclosure of investigative executive summary. Pursuant to ORS 192.6401, we have an item on tonight's agenda to discuss and potentially authorize the disclosure of the investigative executive summary concerning the transportation manager hiring process that we voted on February 21st in public session. This executive summary would potentially be exempt from disclosure under Oregon's public records law because it may be protected by the attorney-client privilege. However, we have at least one public records request for this document. So we've added it to the agenda to discuss and vote on it to authorize its disclosure in response to that public records request. So it's opened up for discussion or motion. where we see this.
So basically, this document, as I recall, the executive session document says, here are the findings related to 3 avenues of investigation, about 1 sentence each. No facts of who said what, who, where, and no details about of disclosure about what questions were asked or anything else. It's just, here's what I conclude. So I don't really see the harm in releasing the document, because frankly, we're not releasing very much that we didn't talk about in the executive session or the open session last time. Feels to me like we're just sort of stating the obvious. If anybody else feels differently, but
I concur with that.
I agree.
Okay. So do we have a motion to, on the table?
I move to release the findings of the investigation. Reference the investigation into the public, not the findings, the executive session, executive summary of the findings into the public record. Waiving the attorney-client privilege.
We have a second.
I'll second.
So we have a motion on the table to go ahead and release the findings of investigative executive summary, waiving the attorney-client privilege, and we have a second. Do we have further discussion?
Just under discussion, this specifically refers to the executive session only, not the full document.
The executive summary, yes, only the executive summary.
I'll note that I did review that executive summary prior to this meeting, and I did ask that same question. They said it's just the summary. Yeah.
I concur. That's what I agreed to second to.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. We're gonna go ahead and vote on this. And I will start with Kelsey.
I'm gonna abstain from this one.
Okay, Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and Steve?
Yes,
And yes for myself as well. Okay, thank you. Policy updates. We are now going to turn this over to Mr. Hawk.
Yeah, as we jump into 20 policies this evening, this might be for us. So 20 policies, just before we get started, we did send all of Tammy, sent these all to the Community School Boards Organization for review. They did come back and said they had no feedback on these. However, they did say there's a policy CB that they gave some recommendations for us to review that we'll bring to the board at our next policy work session. Also, what you'll see, we have the board requested we do something new where we put all of these policies online and opened up for community feedback. You'll see in front of you a printed handout. We closed that this morning, and this is the feedback that we received through that community input link. So with that, I'll jump into 3.1, BDDH public comment at board meetings. This policy, we only had one change based on changing the heading. The heading on in the last section, it said criticism regarding staff member, and we know that we don't allow criticism or praise, so it's neutral. We don't allow any comments. So this just says public comment regarding staff members. So that's the only change to this. This is the second reading of this policy.
Do we want to go through and do a motion on each policy, or do we want to do this in bulk? Like we did last time?
I would recommend we do each policy.
Okay,
I have some various facts along the way.
okay, Steve, did you hear that?
no,
Okay, so we are gonna go ahead and vote on each policy as it comes up instead of doing a poll like we did last time. So we're gonna do a vote on, we'll do a motion and a vote on each policy.
sounds good.
BDDH did have some community feedback as well on that sheet if you want to read that.
Can you read that? Because I don't have it in front of me.
Yes, there's two feedbacks. The first says, this is for policy BDDH. It says possibly be more specific in the wording that the board will hear no comments regarding individual staff, either positive or negative. Then follow with the sentences explaining how complaints or commendations will be directed. So that's public feedback number one. Public feedback number two, your proposed changes to BDDH continue to restrain free speech, despite your assertions that you have had this policy language cleared by two different attorneys and you think it's just fine, it is not. So that is the public feedback we received on this.
I'll just comment that that last paragraph in the policy kind of covers the second. Well, the second comment that you read first about being more specific, it says the board will not hear comments regarding any individual district staff member, and then it says anything involving a staff member sent to the superintendent who will forward it to the board, so that's covered. At least in my mind.
Yes.
I think it is worth noting for the benefit of our new board members that the reason this is delicate is because we have specific language written into our labor contract with our teachers. It's only in the certified contract, I think, which says you cannot criticize publicly or privately your staff members or your teaching staff, members of bargaining. And so to allow the public to come up and start offering criticism of a teacher during public comments would potentially be a violation of the labor agreement. So we resolved that by just saying that couldn't happen, but we said you couldn't criticize. And in fact, what the courts have determined based on the legal advice we got was that, you know, you have to be content neutral. You can't say good things, but you can say bad things. You can't say anything at all. It's either anything or it's everything. So in order to stay within the bounds of our labor contract, we're proposing to say nothing.
Yeah. Because then otherwise you're opening up for interpretation of the comment, whether it's good or bad.
And sometimes comments can start out one direction and then wander and explode.
Agreed.
But
Hey,
we've seen that happen.
Scott, is it worth noting that we're one of the few districts that actually allow public comments at a board meeting?
Sure.
Is it because most don't, I think? Am I correct in that or am I wrong?
I'm looking at Melinda.
I don't know what the statistics are for us, but you don't
Somebody,
have-
I'd heard both. I'd heard that we're kind of the oddity of actually allowing public comment, or not allowing, but just providing an opportunity for public comment at a board meeting. I understood that we were one of the few.
Surprised. All those YouTube videos out there of public comment gone wrong. I thought everybody was doing that.
And maybe I just heard Oregon. I don't know.
Okay, do we have further discussion? Are we ready to make a motion?
I guess a point of clarification, so that's just for public making a comment, right? So it doesn't
Correct.
apply to our discussions.
And only during the public comments portion
This is
of the
just public comment, the public comment portion.
So we're still free to praise whoever comes up.
You're free to say nice things, but not
Okay.
mean things. About teaching certified staff.
Okay. Do we have a motion for BDDH?
I'm going to adopt policy BBDH on second reading.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to, I just lost my words, pass BDDH in the second reading, and we have a second. Do we have further discussion? Okay, let's vote. Kelsey?
I agree.
Scott?
Yes.
Yes.
Eric? Steve?
Yes.
And yes for myself as well. Thank you.
So we should take a minute to celebrate that the new board just passed its first policy.
Yay.
Law now.
It's exciting.
Yay. Left out more than we did with the old board.
Leland, you're up. 4.2.
Right, this is the second reading of this policy. The policy pretty much throws everything back in line with what the new OSHA rules are. So there's nothing in there that's like really unusual or anything. We're already compliant with everything that's in this policy. There were no change, this is the second reading, there were no changes on it after the first reading.
No additional changes is what it says from the first reading.
Madam Chair, I move to adopt policy EBBB.
Okay. We have a second? Okay, so we have a motion on the table to go ahead and pass EBBB policy with a second. And do we have further discussion? Okay, let's vote. Kelsey? Ruth? Scott?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
And yes for myself. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, that was all for you. Oh, Mr.
work, you.
Cable, come have a seat.
Yeah.
Oof.
Get comfy.
Okay. Got 11 policies we gotta work on here. First one is IGBAF-AR, and it's around the IEP process. I think in the section D there's a little clarification. As well as in this policy, they get rid of language around COVID-19 recovery services, which no longer is applicable. And then I think that there's just some clarifications on what FAPE is, spelling it out instead of having it just say FAPE. Take a look at this and then let me know if you have any questions.
A lot of red.
Yeah, because we're no longer dealing with COVID. Recovery.
Right, just to clarify, this won't impact what's already happening.
No,
It's just through
Yeah.
language.
and we had legal take a look at this too. Yep, this is right in line.
Grant on 3.5, where it's got the highlighted yellow curriculum, and that's an addition or a deletion? Page
Hmm.
2.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Hard to see, but I think it's blue.
Yeah,
It's blue letters, but highlighted. It's blue font highlighted.
then it would be an addition.
Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't tell with the yellow.
Scott, if you want a paper packet,
No.
we were having just a brief tech support issue, so sit tight.
I'm all good.
That's the old stuff.
Oh, well, I didn't know.
Oh, I thought you.
No, like my butt.
We're not staring at crumbs.
We are waiting.
Thanks. Personal writers for you're sending me this copy of that. That.
So we're back. Do we have a motion on the table for this policy?
I move to approve IGBAF-AR.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion to pass IGBAF-AR in a second. Do we have further discussion?
Yeah, I had one question. which
Okay.
I was trying to get to.
Oh, sorry.
About that. So this language in 3D that talks about, and it appears later in other policies, so it's important. About all staff have to be invited to and compensated for attending meetings regarding students' IEP and other meetings. Is that compensated language coming out of statute or rule somewhere?
Yeah. Yeah.
One, it seemed unusually specific.
It's new,
Okay.
And that mainly has to do with, classified staff.
correct?
IAs, now we compensate for attending IEPs and things.
Yeah, what I was concerned about was exempt staff or certified staff who might be working off hours
Yeah,
and making sure that there was no misunderstanding
Mhm.
around that. That
Yep.
doesn't create an expectation of extra pay for certified or exempt staff.
understand is, yeah, that this would just be referring to the additional, classified staff. Am I right on that?
That's what I understood as well. Yep, that's how it was explained to me.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, let's go ahead and vote. Chelsea? Everybody? Scott?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
And yes as well. Thank you.
Okay. We've got IGBAG now, which is talking about procedural safeguards. And if you look through, basically it talks about, going from FAPE to spelling it out, as well as adding some legal references and then access to records. And so that was a new thing from the old date, which basically means that we have to get records to our parents within a certain amount of days, basically not exceeding 10 business days around IEP documents.
But do you have anything on this one? Okay.
I'm wondering, we've got more language in this one around parents specifically. We talked about parents, guardians and foster parents all being
Right.
the same thing. Is there somewhere in policy, we don't have to keep addressing this individually, where we could put a statement that says parent means parent, guardian, or foster parent? Like,
I believe
in
we
one
have that.
common place, just even adopt a policy on it.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Because I've rewritten this in these documents about 4 times.
I believe there is, there, that does exist. Let me try to find it real quick.
But we can do if we can do that, then we wouldn't have to amend it all the time.
Greg, if I understand this correctly, we're just making sure we're compliant with statute on time frames for.
Correct.
That's the next.
Yep, and that's new. That timeline is new. Timeline of 10 business days is new. There was a timeline.
Last page.
We were in the AR associated with this policy, IGBAGAR, it says, parents, guardians, or persons in parental relationships to students. So it doesn't quite define it, but it does capture that we give this to all those people. I can do more digging to see. I know it exists somewhere.
I'm thinking more of a standalone policy in the policy
Yeah.
book that says, when we refer to parents, we mean
Yeah,
these people, and then it covers all of the multitude of policies.
I think that's a good idea. We can get a draft from potentially OSBA and bring us to the board at the March 19th session.
Here's an idea, we could even write that ourselves. We don't need to write a single sentence.
I would dare test out a sentence to bring to you in March. So
As
yeah,
long as it has no apostrophes, you'll be fine.
or dashes on my. So yeah, we can bring that to you March 19th.
So,
That's my only question.
okay. Okay. All right. So do we have a motion on the table for IGBAG?
Move to adopt IGBAG.
We have a second?
Also, can I-
Okay, we have a motion for, to pass IGBAG the way it is, and a second. Do we have further discussion? Okay, let's vote. Kelsey? Scott?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Yes, as well. Thank you.
Okay. JBAA, and it's regarding to section 504 with students. And it appears that they added some additional legal references for this.
Legal references, but doesn't do anything to the policy.
Added the ORSs.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And OAR.
Move to adopt JBAA.
Okay, we have a motion to adopt JBAA in a second. Do we have further discussion? Okay, let's vote. Chelsea, or Scott,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
and yes as well. Thank you.
Okay. JBAA-AR, and it's also around section 504 and students. I think that they clean up some of the language. They say student instead of they. HIV with versus spelling it out. Also for 504s, it's similar to IEPs where we need to invite and compensate our classified that attend those 504 meetings for any of the students that they work with. And then, of course, they talk about foster parents, guardians, parents. They added that.
I see a lot of his, her crossed out, and then there's in their district responsibilities, there's the superintendent or is crossed out with her replacing it.
Where are you
Just
looking at?
do-
Two.
It's 2-5, yeah.
That should be crossed out too.
Should it be crossed out?
Oh, that, okay.
So it'd just be the superintendent or designee? Okay, perfect.
Sorry about that.
Catch.
Question on the HIV. Instead of spelling out the whole virus, you're putting HIV, but you're also putting HIV virus at the end of it again. Is that intentional? Because otherwise it would read virus twice. That's just a housekeeping thing.
I think it's just a housekeeping thing, yeah. I mean, but we're game, whatever you guys think is better.
I don't know. I don't know how it should read. I'm just more looking at it. Because HIV is the virus, but
I think, like you said, it's a housekeeping thing. I think we could probably cross it out unless somebody has a preference on that.
I cross out before HIV too.
Yeah,
Yep.
basically, we just added foster parent. Is that pretty much? Okay.
Mm.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Well, to be honest, I don't know how you would address like the housekeeping. Does it need in the motion? Is that just get done later or?
You would just say, I motion to approve JBAA-AR with the housekeeping of getting rid of the word the.
All right. I motion to approve JBAA-AR with housekeeping language.
And we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to pass JBAA-AR with the 2 housekeeping cleanups and a second. Do we have further discussion? Okay, let's vote. Kelsey,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Steve,
yes.
and yes as well. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. We've got JGAB, use of restraint and seclusion. So take a look at that. We, put language in there around the restraint and seclusion training that we use, which is CPE, crisis prevention intervention training. As
Brad,
well.
are you talking section 9?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, there's a blue B that is highlighted. It says as required should be by state regulation?
Regulation.
Yeah, correct.
Again, nothing but a housekeeping thing.
In grant, on the housekeeping part, right above that, it says has selected CPE, but it's actually crisis.
Oh,
prevention
yeah,
intervention.
CPI. Yeah, good call. That's right.
It's like, when I took it, it was called CPI.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we even have a training that's called CPS. So we love acronyms.
Yeah, I see a lot of like restraints we're not supposed to use.
Correct.
I'm assuming the training has restraints you are allowed to use.
That's, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right,
No, Madam Chair, I move to adopt policy JGAB, correcting the typographical errors in section 9 related to the CPE and the Bs.
Second,
okay, we have a motion to pass JGAB with the cleanup under section A from CPE to CPI in word by, and we have a second. Further discussion?
Yeah, parliamentary inquiry. These are all passing pretty much unanimously on first read. Are we?
These are not first read.
These are all second.
The first reads are indicated 4.1, 4.18. I think these are one first reading of the night.
So you were considering this final reading or not bringing this back?
Second reading, unanimously we're adopting. Tammy, were there any other first reads besides the one that's indicated?
I think it was just that one. Everything else is.
Yep, this is second reading.
Yep. Okay, any more discussion? Okay, let's vote. Kelsey? Yes. Scott?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Steve?
yes,
And yes as well.
Okay. JGAB AR, use of restraint or seclusion. And they added some language in there as well as foster parent.
For the
And
language that was added,
yes,
is this driven by compliance or what? Like the immediate written notification, some of this other blue language was that to bring things back into compliance or what was?
so I don't think it's around that. Basically what OSBA does is they go through, and I'm assuming that based on what has taken place and what they've seen, and then they make recommendations. And that's what these recommendations are.
Question on page 2-4. Number 9. Top of the page. The reference to notification, I'm sorry, page 3-3.
Okay, got it. Yep.
In reference to notification to the superintendent of public instruction. Where's that coming from? The superintendent of public instruction for the state is the governor. We're supposed to call the governor? That's just weird.
Yeah, Joel. I don't know about that.
Yeah, that seems, obviously, reading that, if serious bodily or death. So if a death occurred, I would think that would account, kind of to your question earlier, Ms. Swick, a lot of these would come from legislative updates that then OSBA interprets. That's something we can dig into and bring back March 19th, because that does seem 24 hours to the Oregon
To the governor,
Superintendent of Public Construction.
yeah, I mean, I would see you calling ODE.
Yeah.
But not
Yeah.
Tina.
How
She
about
might be busy.
we can hold off on this one and look at
Yeah.
that question and bring it back March 19th with an answer of whether we're supposed to contact the governor if that
That takes
scenario
place.
happens.
Yeah. Moving on then to JH, student welfare. Take a look at this one. They've crossed things out and just, I think they've changed some language.
In that first paragraph where it says, such supervision does not include. I think we need to get rid of the word or. Is it the way it reads? It was supposed to include early morning or the time following usual departure,
Yeah,
so we keep or in there.
right. Doesn't make sense.
Where did these revisions in the first paragraph come from? Whose are these? This is an OSBA.
That was from a previous policy work session. Let me look. Oh, board requested changes on 10/21 of 24. October 21st was the first reading of the work session, and there were requested changes.
But we don't know that those changes were that first sentence. That doesn't say that. I don't know where that came.
School requested changes made by school board members.
Yes, the highlighted ones were the changes that came from that work session.
Whatever I thought October 21st, I don't think it is there. I hate that change. This completely alleviates all responsibility for the district. It changes this from student safety will be assured through close supervision of students in all school buildings and grounds during the hours when schools are normally present to the district provides supervision of students. That is a wimpy exit from our obligation. And I would very much like to see us go back to the original language.
I do
Also,
too.
think that next line, the next sentence there needs some amending. It says such supervision does not include early morning, cross that out. So it now says the supervision does not include, I don't know what it says. Does not include
The time.
or the time, does not include or the time following usual departure. It's messy. Maybe it means, maybe the or was supposed to go out too.
Yeah, it was supposed to go out.
Anyway, I think it should generally be the practice of this district. Oh, that was it. The last sentence there, hours when supervision is available shall be included in the student parent handbook. How many times do we have to go through the mischief of every building making up different rules on its own in its handbook that all ends up in a big public relations mess here at this table? So I would rather see us have a more specific standard that says at the end, but shall at minimum be at least 30 minutes before and 30 minutes after the opening and closing school.
We could bring that
Something
back.
or something better. That's too general
Mhm.
and nobody's then accountable when a tragedy happens. Wasn't my idea.
Yeah, we can bring it back. You got it.
And then number 3, the language CTE, and this appears throughout a lot of these policies. There's no prior reference to CTE, so it's spelled out.
Got it.
We are like heavily salting and peppering these policies with acronyms today. I know this. So those are those.
Well, one was spelled out and then they took it away, so there's that.
Well, when we're talking student welfare, CTE does kind of imply concussion protocol, so.
So this, if I hear the board correctly, this one, bring back again on the 19th. And have specific at minimum 30 minutes before or after school, reword that paragraph.
Let's see you rewrite
Mr.
that.
Cooper does not agree with the Mr. Cooper of October 21st.
If he said that.
What if
he
it
was-
happened on October 21st?
Would that create a conflict with any non-school sponsored activities that occur in those 30 minutes before and after, or would we have to write language for exemptions on that? I'm thinking like, I don't know, a club early morning or kids club after school.
Yeah, we have lots of clubs, outside clubs taking place after school, so that's something that we can work with. I was looking over at my friend Hannah. Anna, Leland and I can kind of touch base on that and take that into consideration.
I mean, there's a real issue here and it needs to be cleaned up. We've talked about this for a long time while I've been on this board. You know, we have the problem of parents who drop their children at elementary school at 6:30 in the morning. And there's nobody going to be there till 8 o'clock, and the kids are just doing their own thing, and the district cannot guarantee for the minute you arrive, no matter how early you arrive, somebody will be there to take care of your kid.
Right.
So we have to establish some parameters, but we also cannot have what we've had in the past when building principals took it upon themselves to say the doors will open at exactly 10 minutes before the school opens and no one's responsible for your kid before then. We don't care how cold it is.
I know
That isn't work either.
Yeah, that's definitely changed. I know the middle school, that was something request we did over the last 2 years. The middle school now opens early. But yeah, it's something I think we need to clarify and bring back to the board.
Finding the balance so everybody knows when it's reasonable to have your child there and reasonable to have your child. If they're there, they should be, you know, somebody should be supervised. Yeah.
Look forward to bringing this back on the 19th.
Okay. JHCD medications. It's a lot of blue.
And you're already amending it.
Is this the one we looked at last month?
Correct. Or, yeah, whatever.
This one or was it?
We have two of them.
Yeah.
Are these brand new policies that are? Or are
No,
they like
we've-
complete reworks?
Yeah, we're gonna go down the list and we have two proposed deletions, which these are replacing.
Okay. Just reading the guide, OSBA recommending policy as a result of House Bill 2002 and 2395. So this is due to new legislation. We had a first reading on January 22nd.
Okay, now I know where I'm at. I read these last night, but I lost track when I saw the blue.
If there's no corrections on that, I move to approve JHCD.
The friendly amendment, how about JHCD and it's JHCD?
I didn't hear all that.
How about JHCD and JHCD-AR?
I
Together.
will,
One
I'm good
motion.
with that. I'm good with that.
Second that.
Okay, we have,
Well, please.
it's. I did actually have something on the AR one, Mr. Cooper.
Under discussion, you could.
We have a motion on the table to approve JHCD and JHCD-AR and a second. Do we have further discussion? Oh, me. I have. Okay, it's on page 9-11. And I think it's just a housekeeping thing, under disposal of medications. If number 2 is crossed out, oh, this was your crossing out of the cat litter, Steve.
Correct.
Yep.
It's just a number change. If we're gonna
Oh,
cross out 2, we need.
Then it needs to be 2, 3,
Yeah.
right? Got it.
Nice catch.
That's just a housekeeping thing. Okay, do we have further discussion on this, on these 2? Okay, let's go ahead and vote. Kelsey? Yeah. Scott?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
And yes as well. Thank you.
Okay. JHCD/JHCDA. which is medications and its proposed deletion,
And it's counterpart.
correct?
And to delete policy JHCD and JHCD-AAR.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to delete JHCD/JHCDA and JHCD/JHCDA-AR, and a second. We have further discussion. Okay, let's vote. Kelsey?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Steve?
Yep.
And yes, as well. You're done?
That's it, guys. Sorry.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
Way to bring the.
Hey, as he's transitioning real quick, I did get note, Scott, on your question about, JGABAR and notifying the, and that is, language from what was passed from the legislature. So, we can still bring this back, but that is just legislative language. If you did want to adopt this tonight,
Which one?
this is JGABAR. Use of restraint and seclusion.
4.7, 4.9.
And we will be letting the governor know, hopefully we never will and have those situations. The governor know within 24 hours. This was item 3. 4.7. Sorry, 4.8. Thank you.
Oh,
Okay.
well, I didn't know if you were,
It's like old lost on where to find all this
okay,
going backwards.
Mr. Weeks.
All right, we are back with, have three policies for you this evening. All of these are second read policies. First one we have is JHFE. What this was is a Senate Bill 231 changed the way of which reporting child abuse happens in Oregon. Went from more of a local piece to a statewide reporting system, and so that's what's referenced within this policy here. There are no changes in JHFE from the first reading.
Reading the first paragraph, I can see there's could be a little inconsistency when we have. You have to make a report to DHS through the centralized or to a law enforcement agency within the county.
Yeah.
To me, I would think you would need to do either do all or nothing. Well, not nothing, but I would change that to end. So that way you're doing both, and that way you don't have confusion. Having one employee do the DHS route, the other do the county route.
Yeah, and we can change it to an and. The reason why it is an or is the way the law is specified for mandatory reporting is that you were supposed to make a report to one or the other. So for instance, if there's a report that may come into a counselor, they may pull the SRO in and make that report directly to an SRO. And then that covers them instead of having to call DHS at that same time. It goes the same direction. So then the law enforcement agencies do the cross work. So that's the reason for the or, but we can absolutely change our policy to have an and at the same time.
I guess if they can ensure that the law enforcement does the report, that's not a problem. Well, I just want them both to be notified.
And if you call law enforcement, they'll tell you to call DHS.
Yeah.
How it works.
So we could do an and. But that's the reason why it's always been an or is that piece of law that says to report to either one of the two.
I would hate to put and in there because if you call one and they say, okay, we got it from here, and you forget to call the other, you just violated your policy.
I'd leave the or because, I mean, it's child abuse reporting is actually really confusing. Mandatory reporting can be a lot of judgment calls, and you're just making it harder when you make the call two instead of one.
Okay. I will rescind that request. Good discussion.
Does everybody on this board, since we have new board members, know that you are also now a mandatory reporter by virtue of being on this board?
And you will get that training and email tomorrow. Jane, I met on it today.
Is it all of the seats?
No.
I digress. Okay,
Move to approve JHFE.
Second approving JHFE and GBNAB, because they go together.
Oh, yes.
or no? Okay.
Vultures.
Okay,
Lawyers to approve.
we have a motion on the table to approve JHFE dash or slash GBNAB and a second. Do we have further discussion?
Yes, we do, because there's more housekeeping if we're not gonna do the end, because if you flick to 2, 3. It's like somebody added an N right after an or.
Oh, yep.
Flip the page and you got making a report to law enforcement or N, the centralized.
Oh,
Looks like somebody already did that one. So
So you're saying cross out that.
we're gonna have to cross out one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
there's a lot of changes. Okay. Do we have any further discussion besides the housekeeping on that?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go ahead. So we have a motion on the table to go ahead and approve JHFE slash GBNAB with the housekeeping part of the word and. And a second. Kelsey?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
And yes as well. Thank you.
All right, our next one is the administrative rule to the same policy. Much of this is the same. The only change on here is there was a ask of the board the last time we looked at this under failure to comply. So we're on the page 3 right now, about halfway down. You'll see it highlighted in yellow. So there was a concern about the language of disciplined up to and including dismissal, forcing a act must do a dismissal. That was the concern at that time by the board. So what we did is we went through and struck the and including, so up to dismissal, the language of that policy based on the ask on the first reading. And that's the only change on this one from reading number 1.
Okay, isn't it true that all of our other policies generally refer to discipline up to and including dismissal?
That is accurate.
This was to answer some very specific person's concern, but how they happen to be reading, right?
Yes. And so most of the policies, Scott, you're right, do have up to and including dismissal.
I think consistency is a good thing, so I move to adopt JHFEGBNABAR, removing the strikeout of and including.
Okay, just to put it back.
So put the yellow back in,
Okay, because it's consistent with,
because it's how everything else works. Somebody was just really wound around the action on that and drove around.
That was me, Scott. I'm unwound now. I don't have to, it's all good now. If it's consistent, then it's good. I'm fine.
We have a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion to pass JHFE slash GBNAB dash AR and a second with the removal of the strikeout under failure to comply. Do we have further discussion? Steve, now's your time to,
yeah.
shine again.
Nope, this axle's unwound.
Okay. Let's vote. Kelsey, Scott,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
and Steve.
Of course.
And yes,
like that.
as well. Thank you. Of course.
All right, the last one I have for you tonight, policy JHFF. This one comes to you on a second reading as well. No changes were made to this between reading number 1 and the second reading here.
So. I have a question. This first section where you have the strikeout for students are also subject. I understand why that would be stricken out. Because you had relationships between students. Was the meaning to have it in there originally in case they were in a supervisory role?
Or working as an employee. Was my understanding of the way that read to me. So students are also, if they're acting as an employee, contract agent or volunteer. So if they're in a role of either supervisory or an agent of the district and not just a student of the district.
Then they would still be covered by this policy, if that's the case.
Correct.
Okay. Just making sure that a student doesn't get exempted from it in case they get
Yes.
into that position. Okay.
We also took our strike too far back and took the period out of the end of that last sentence.
Good catch.
But that's okay because they have the period, they left it at the end of the strike.
Oh, they did. Oh, I didn't see that. Yeah, you're right. They knew
They
what
did
they were
what?
doing.
Right. All right, do we have a motion?
And one other question.
Oh.
Beforehand. I think this is just curiosity. Why are we suddenly putting definitions in the footnotes? As opposed to in the policies? Is that OSBA?
That's OSBA language, so.
That just seems like, I mean, in statutes, you have a whole section of definitions, and then you have the statute, and it would seem that you would be consistent, but we are not consistent.
Not we.
OSBA.
I'm not clear.
But a footnote, just to be fair, and this is going to be important in a second, is part of the policy, right?
Yes.
It's got as much validity as the language. JHFFGDNAA.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second,
Okay, we have a motion to approve JHFF GBNAA and a second. Do we have further discussion?
I have a question.
Yeah,
The change from 90 days to 1 calendar year, was that because of laws? as
that
well?
is. Senate Bill 431 is what changed that.
Okay. No more.
Okay. Let's vote. Kelsey?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Steve?
yes.
And yes as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Are you done already?
I'm done.
Oh.
You get your first readings now.
Miss Carrie.
As I was sitting there, Layla looked at me and said, wow, you have a big stack.
Yes, I do.
Hi, everybody. I'm ready with my big stack.
Okay,
Okay,
we're ready.
well, Steve gave, or Scott gave a little teaser that there's gonna be a footnote, something coming up. I'm ready for it.
Huh? I was just waiting on that last one for it. Okay. IKF.
So this is a second read. This has come up before, so this is not a first read one. I think my first read ones are on the back page, if I remember correctly.
Oh, yeah, looks like, this looks familiar.
Yeah. It's a big policy, covers a lot of things. I think we had it in November when we were out in Paulina, actually, it was the first time this one came up.
Mhm.
Do you have a presentation or are we just jumping into question?
You want to talk about? anything about these guys or-
Yeah, so the concern about the US history piece. So the state of Oregon just requires 3 total social studies credits. We have had US history as our second of 3 required credits. In November, when I had a piece in there that kind of dictated which classes were the must take and may take, there was some discussion around not lining out all the must takes versus may takes, because we could change courses, we could change names of courses, those kinds of things. So I'm happy to put US history back in there as our Crook County School District requirement for our. And then the US civics is the one that's added, so that would be a,
Just to back up for
Yep.
everybody, so I had emailed Joel and Carrie last night when I read the policies. And said, the way this reads now, our social studies would require a minimum of the US civics or AP government class, which is a semester class. I think that's a semester, right? Those are semester.
AP government as a whole year, but yeah,
So, and
For the
then,
dual credit.
then you would have, under this wording, you would have no requirement that any student in high school take any US history. And I personally have a problem with that. Because if you call it social studies, and we have got a very, very broad definition of what fits under social studies, you can work your way through, the rest of your high school career and never actually learn about George Washington crossing the Delaware. And it seems to me like this country needs a little more education and history at the moment.
So as a former social studies teacher, I couldn't agree more. We're welcome to adjust that language to make sure that that is stated. I believe that's junior year. They typically, students would take US history.
and I'm happy to put it in there, obviously, as a other former social studies teacher. I would like to outline all those things specifically, but
Yes.
Okay.
There's actually there's multiple places in there because.
Yes.
yeah,
Right.
on all the, there's
Yes.
multiple diplomas that have that piece in there.
So we could just uncross out that, I believe that was board requested cross out, so we can, as we've seen, we can change our minds from previous.
Am I not at the planning meeting?
You were definitely there.
You
I
had to
think
chair it.
I think you were chairing that meeting.
You were chairing that
I
meeting.
figured I'd get to it later,
Hey,
because now is later.
so I hear to
Bless you.
uncross that.
Uncross,
That-
so must include the 0.5 of civics and must include 1.0 of US history.
Yeah,
Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm personally.
I won't mark,
That's not the end of my problem.
okay.
But wait, there's more.
So we did get a question, it's reasonable to ask. Please explain the rationale behind offering a certificate of attendance. Is that state law?
It's under the alternative certificates, which require notification of parents starting after, families starting after 5th grade, and is generally reserved for students with significant disabilities and or extenuating circumstances.
And then scrolling down to the exemptions, for students who don't have to take certain classes. Number 2, students experiencing houselessness.
Yes.
Would have all graduation requirements above the state requirements waived. Which definition of houselessness are we using? Literally, if I am overnight on a couch at a friend's house,
Like-
surfing and my houseless, and don't have to meet the graduation requirement.
Well, based on the ORS, I think it refers back to the McKinney-Vento definition, the federal definition of houselessness. Homelessness is kids with substandard housing. It's really what it comes, it can be substandard housing, transitional housing. Trying to think of what the third one is, doubled up. Yeah, I think there's 4 things.
So we move in with grandma and suddenly the family moves in with grandma and suddenly I'm forgiven from the graduation requirements above the state. minimums?
Our McKinney-Vento, our federal requirements around McKinney-Vento doesn't exempt us from all graduation requirements, but in the year that we were recognized as being homeless or houseless, that there are definitely protections for them. There is some federal, I don't have the language in front of me. I would have brought that, but there definitely is some federal legislation around not holding them back from graduating, knowing that homelessness impacts their, but I can bring that specific language and what the definition is in the ORS. I don't have that in front of me, but I'm happy to. We're probably gonna have to bring this one back anyway, so that might be a good conversation piece to have.
And then continuing on that line, under
Yep.
number 7, it talks about the district has to accept any credits earned by a student in an educational program in this state. Why this state as opposed to credits earned in some other state?
Can you, which page are you
It's
on?
under the same page, under 7, paragraph under 7.
I think that goes with the number 7. So approved recovery schools are those for, in my understanding of this, are those for addiction. And so if a student ends up in an addiction recovery program in the state of Oregon, then those come in, but I don't know why it's not in another state.
So if that does apply, if that paragraph does modify number 7.
Yeah.
That would make sense. But I'm not sure that it's clear that that paragraph modifies only number 7. 'Cause
Okay.
it says for any student identified above, which would suggest all 7.
Oh, right,
Child in a military family is definitely not gonna be bringing in credits from this state.
right, true,
So
Yeah.
that doesn't really work.
Okay.
Migrant worker child also,
right. So we just need to make it more clear that that belongs with number 7.
if that's what you're trying to
Yep.
do.
Yeah.
But there's more.
That paragraph feels like it should apply to all. It just feels like the state is wrong there, because really. You should accept credits from another school if the kid ran away, when the kid was in foster care in another state. That, it feels to me like it should do that. I agree with it.
So I know that that doesn't look like it was new language in the model sample policy. So I'm looking for our. Yeah, so this looks like it has been in our policy. That same language has been in our policy, whether it's under number 7 or whether it's under number 6 in our old policies.
Then we just need to modify that in the state part. And I'm not sure if it needs to be broader or if it needs to just be in this state or
This
other
goes to this
school with
state, right?
comparable accreditation or something.
And then on the bottom, how do I do this? How do I refer this page? There's no page numbers on this thing. Oh, okay, continuing down.
Okay.
To the footnotes
Okay.
under standard diploma.
Okay.
So footnote number 11. So in 2021.
Yep.
The state of Oregon decided that you didn't need to be able to read or write or do math in order to graduate from a school in this state. That is the official policy of this state. And they reiterated that in statutory language, I believe, last year. Year before.
Yes.
And Circuit County School District said at that time that that wasn't gonna be the standard in this district, that we were gonna guarantee children could read, write, and do math in order to graduate them. So we sent Joel off to write something. And Joel came back with his footnote. I didn't like Joel's footnote approach.
A younger, more optimistic Joel.
I still don't like Joel's footnote. Because I think that's a really important policy statement
Yeah.
that deserves to be in the main text. So I would really like, since we're gonna rewrite this anyway, to move that footnote up into the text somewhere and just clear, and it keeps coming up. I keep getting asked by it by email or accused of it. That we did not repeal the basic proficiency requirements in this district. The state of Oregon did, but we can go above and beyond, and we have, and we should, and this should be in policy. It deserves better than a footnote.
Can we put it as the first paragraph?
I would love to put it in as a first paragraph.
We can bring back some, Yeah, some language on that. I agree.
I don't mind the wording, I just wanna put it up
In the
somewhere
flesh of
where
it.
it looks like it matters, because it actually does. I still think the state of Oregon lost its marbles,
Tell us how you really feel.
been doing that 16 years.
Okay, we're gonna move that to,
We'll move it. Bill and I will figure out where that goes.
And that really was an extent.
Okay. So if I'm gonna clarify, it's US history. Footnote 11 and that paragraph after the number 7 to see which that applies to and if it does apply to all of them, fixing this state.
I had houselessness kind of definition.
Oh, yeah, I have that too. What is the definition?
I'm gonna go off that public comment again, just because.
Yeah.
I'm curious and I feel like we should probably get behind what they're going after. What exactly do you get with a certificate of attendance?
It is.
What, because I mean, high school diploma, you're able to apply for a job. I read it in the text here, you can't do that.
No.
So what exactly does that give you?
It just signifies that you were a regular attender, but you did not meet all of the other graduation requirements. So it's not good for community college. It's not good for your transcripts will not say that you earned an Oregon diploma or a Kirk County
So
diploma.
it just says you were basically a resident here that went to school, but you can't use it for anything.
And to just kind of lay this out practically speaking, how it's applied, these are students with severe special needs where, you know, not being able to, you know, our life skills program where unable to maybe speak or communicate regularly. So that usually is just applied to severe special needs circumstances.
And exchange students.
And sometimes, you know, we've had some exchange students get diplomas, honorary
Oregon said
diplomas.
they couldn't.
So.
The one other piece with the alternative certificate with their certificate of attendance, the OSBA policy did give the opportunity to the local board to define what a regular attender is. They gave some examples in here in policy about what, in order to earn a certificate of attendance, what regular attending has to be. So that is up for you guys. We can go with the ODE's definition of not being a chronically absent student, which is 13 days in a year by May 1st. Or you can decide a different definition of regular attender.
So I would think you would want something similar to the threshold they put out there when your kid is absent so long,
Yeah.
that they start sending the notices.
Yeah.
Found this out the hard way with COVID.
Right. The other piece to think about with that was sometimes our students with significant needs, they are medical in nature as well. And they are sometimes not our most regular attenders. So is it a barrier to say that you can't be chronically absent? If you are a student with one of those significant needs, but that's up for you guys to decide. Those were just some of the things that came up in the OSBA policy. I think that's why they are giving each board latitude to define that.
I think my read on the situation too is it gives a road for some students to have dignity and a sense of recognition that they might not otherwise have. And so like drilling into what's regular attendee or not, when you're in that circumstance, doesn't seem like a really great use of time.
These students also, particularly those that are, you know, severely impacted, they typically get the certificate of attendance and then we're able to serve them until age 21. So they typically go into our transition program. So that's another aspect. Lots to bring back on this one,
No more.
plus more.
No more.
Okay.
Under the extended diploma.
Yep.
So we have knocked down, this is for students who have a significant learning barrier of some sort.
Yes.
You're gonna do a medical condition.
Yep.
So we have reduced the requirements in order to give the extended diploma. It's only 2 credits of math, 2 credits of English, 2 credits of science.
Mhm.
But we've kept the social sciences credit exactly the same at 3. And here we expect them to learn history, but we don't expect them to learn civics. should we maybe consider adding the civics in as an example, and maybe knocking off one of those credits in social sciences? Something to think about. But I don't know why we not reduce that proportionally when we reduced everything else. You can't reduce the one less than one.
Is the extended diploma, does it have to be 12 credits? Is that why that is 3?
Yes,
Okay.
Maybe it ought to be an elected credit. Rather than dictating the entire course of study.
I'm trying to think. So the only other one that stays. So E and F, 1 credit of health and 1 credit of physical education, those are also. Kind of, those go with all the diplomas as well, so those are standard,
But you can't go to less than one.
right? Yeah, well, you could do half because. Each credit of health is only a semester long, so it is just a half credit. Not that you want to do that, but. For 1 half credit of physical education. But yes, we can
Take a look at it.
reduce social sciences and increase. Electives. If we choose to do that.
I would think with a student getting an extended diploma, you'd want to have as much flexibility as possible.
Yeah.
To figure out how to get the
It's a lot. And for context, we maybe have 1 a year, if, so it's a pretty rare scenario.
The other thing I would guess is that if you look at larger districts too, many of those social sciences courses. Like we would offer psychology and we would offer criminal justice. Sometimes those can also be taken as elective courses and they're sometimes high interest. So maybe that's why. That stayed in there as well, as there's more elective opportunities. I don't know. I can only have to go conjecture on it.
One last one.
Okay.
I swear I got it.
Oh, I don't, keep going.
So I just wondered, now that we have this amazing new program, the 18, for granting a dual diploma and associate of arts transfer degree, do we maybe want to take a little victory lap and write that up as an option
That would be awesome.
in
Yeah.
our policy? Since we are granting, I mean, then that's your aspirational piece
Yeah.
for people to aspire to.
We have 2 aspects of that where students can earn an associate's degree concurrent. And that, COCC would actually award that. And then there's also the core transfer map where they're completing their whole first year of community college. Do you want recognition for both of those or just?
To me, it's more than the standard diploma,
Yeah,
so it deserves the recognition, and it's not more than an honors diploma, so.
Would that be the advanced diploma?
Mm-mm.
No, it's, advanced diploma is a funding mechanism.
Yeah,
yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Different, Oregon has a whole different definition of advanced, but it's a separate program, but yeah.
yes.
We can work on language around that. I think that was a awesome addition that we're
It's
starting
such
this
a
year.
cool thing. Kudos to you guys for putting it together.
Well, I'll see you again with this one.
First coming back with some changes.
Okay, got it.
Standard diploma with a gold seal
Yeah.
or silver seal.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. These are all my copies of the graduation requirements.
Oh.
Yeah.
You're not kidding.
Well, because OSBA and then we had it in November and then we made some changes and wanted to keep it all straight. Try anyway. Okay. Turning it over. All right, mission of resident students. This one didn't have very many changes.
This is a first reading, by the way.
Yep.
So we only vote to move it to second reading.
Most of the changes in there were getting rid of the word board and changing it to district. And then they changed that to the alternative certificate of attendance instead of just a certificate.
I had questions around I lost this. The language about students being admitted who have been previously expelled.
Okay.
Why are we changing that from board to district?
And that was an OSBA sample policy or sample change. That wasn't ours, so I don't know why they did that. I guess when I read that, I was assuming that you don't want to be responsible for. That the board doesn't want to be responsible for,
Well, the board apparently still currently is. responsible.
right,
So I
But
guess
maybe-
the question would be, do we want to give that up?
Yeah.
I don't, a weapons, if you were expelled on a weapons charge, then that's pretty straightforward. You're not coming into our district for a year till you get past that. But if it's some other charge, I would think we would kind of want to hear about it, know about it, and have a discussion about it.
okay,
I mean, what is the rationale for you being expelled? Some things are dangerous to your fellow students and some things just massively ticked off an administrator in another state
Yeah.
somewhere. That's a different kind of kid.
yeah, so that's the number 7 versus number 8.
And if you're if you're gonna have a kid who's gonna come in, maybe you wanna have some cover as staff for making that decision. Which the
Yep.
board would give you.
Yeah.
So I kind of think you ought to think about that. And then I didn't understand why the staff can provide an alternative educational opportunity for a student who is expelled for a weapons violation, but doesn't have the opportunity to do that for anything else
Mm.
that they might be expelled for.
Well, we do provide that, or we
But
do
your
provide
policy
it.
doesn't actually
Yes.
say that.
Yeah, you're right,
So
but we do provide
I
that.
think we would want to be able to do that for any student who would be a danger to other students.
I'm gonna pull up the expulsion policies, because we do do that, we evaluate the
Mhm.
expulsion, we can. Those last a calendar year, and then
Right.
the process you described is exactly what happens, where. They're a threat, safety being our number one priority, they would stay out and be given alternative options. Sometimes if it's for a calendar year, sometimes if through talking with the student, giving background, then there is exceptions when safety's not. an
But
issue.
that's for students that you have expelled, right?
No, we would carry that expulsion, same process if they come from another district. So I wanna go through, I believe we have another policy on expulsion, so we can bring that back to just confirm that.
So we should probably only have that policy in one place, rather than have to amend it twice.
This one says, number 8 does say, for the weapons at least.
Yeah.
Students who are under
Yeah.
expulsion from another.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that was my question, because if you see that, but you don't see the same language for students who are under expulsion for a reason other than weapons,
I see that.
Yep, we can bring this back
and
with.
yet we do that.
With JGE is the expulsion policy, so we can bring these back together. Take a look.
Step on. Okay. So are there further thoughts about whether that should be district or board? Do you guys have thoughts about whether you want to hold on to that or push that back to the district?
I kind of agree with Scott.
Trying to work that out in my head, so with. These reviews, Scott, then we're thinking. Each child that experiences some sort of violation that could result in expulsion would be reviewed by both district and the board.
No, if they're coming in from another district, they've been expelled from their district, they would require a board review of that particular child before they were admitted to our school district.
And we
Therefore,
would
this
include the
proposes
district
to
staff.
say the district only, and bypass the board. Which we could do. I don't know what the justification is, because We're just changing it.
But three and
Because
four
what he said-
stayed the board. But these
Yeah,
down
yeah.
here changed to district.
Yeah.
I would think you'd want district input though, so.
Well, the
Sure.
board can invite advisors into any of its decisions. And the board, under the statute, as I recall, the board can be entirely responsible for the expulsion process if it wants to. That has been heavily delegated over the years, away from the board to the staff. And in some districts, I thought, I didn't know this, in some districts, they actually spend a lot of time expelling students.
The board does?
It's about half the board's responsibility in some districts. So people do things differently. It's
Yes, they
Oregon.
Yeah, JGE is our policy that describes this process, and we can kind of bring that to the board to review in addition to this as they kind of go together. They're similar to other kind of complaint process, it looks like, you know, the board delegates, this is JGE, the board delegates the authority to decide on expulsion to the superintendent. However, then there's some language around a hearing, but then the appeal of that decision can still go to the board for a policy.
I wonder if that's why, in case there's an appeal, that there's a place for it to appeal to.
For some reason, my head is really into a space where staff need a little more protecting from public reaction. I don't know why that would be where my head is, but it is. So what I'm thinking is you have a student who comes from another district who has a history of violent sexual assault. And you, as a staff, have to make the decision on whether to admit that student or not. If for some reason there's some mitigating circumstance and you feel the need to let that student in, you're gonna get cow killed on the other end as soon as that becomes known through somebody's internet search, and teenagers are quite good at that.
Yeah.
And at that point, maybe, rather than set up a scenario where we all come to crucify the administrator who made that decision at the next school board meeting, maybe the school board needs to have been involved in that up front. So that if we're gonna take that on, we can all take it on together. That's my thinking about it.
I agree with that.
Trying to be a little kinder to our staff, not put them in the crosshairs up front.
That makes sense.
And it needs to be clear.
Yeah, let's bring this one back with the expulsion policy, just sounds like that'd be a good thing to look at, review the process and go from there.
Is there anything else on this one that anybody has come up with before they come back with another?
I'd almost think I'd want something in there about the district having a panel, just in the policy, because I agree with you, the employees and the staff need to be protected, and the board is the great way to do it. But I also don't want it to look like the board has sole control, like sole input. I'd almost want in the policy to say like, the staff has to have some sort of review and recommendation to the board.
The board along with district personnel,
Yeah, so recommend to the
Okay.
board, that district shall recommend to the board.
the board based on district, based on a recommendation by district, based on a recommendation.
I'm fine with the board making the decisions, I just want
Yeah.
other input.
Sure.
From district staff. Okay. From relevant district staff.
Or just the superintendent, which implies the whole staff.
That was just a first reading, you wanna? You're voting to move into second readings?
That one's got enough to it, I think we ought to
Bring it back.
graduation requirement or all these things, they're pretty significant. We should allow for a third.
Hey, we got 3 of these work sessions scheduled, so we can bring back all you want.
Well, and remember, our discussion at the last meeting was that we would allow for a third reading in the future,
Yes.
or as many as it took to get it right.
Yep.
I just appreciate that there hasn't been any commas and or
Apostrophe.
apostrophes. I win, Joel, Pop, I win.
We start tonight.
I think just one more.
Sorry, just one thing really
Oh, no,
quickly
don't
on
worry,
this,
you're
of the- is it'd be cool to get like, maybe a couple of examples of how some other districts are doing this, that are working well, so we don't sit here and kind of reinvent the wheel.
I can do that. I'll find some that like do kind of follow this OSBA model, but there are some districts out there that their policies, organization looks quite a bit different than ours, so I'll look for those too. Yep. All right. Ready? Okay. Public charter schools. Not a lot of changes on that one. That's not true. That's a lie. Lots of blue. Sorry, I was looking at my black and white copy
And strike it.
and strikeouts.
So Carrie, just so I'm clear in my head.
Yeah.
This whole section right here, this, on that first page, those two that are mostly struck out. Are we just, wherever you see a word, just keep reading until you see the next word kind of thing? Okay,
Yes.
just making sure.
Getting your fluency down, Jen, with a few barriers.
Oh, yeah.
Be an effort to improve elementary literacy.
Yeah.
So why are we making these changes? Is this a statutory change?
It didn't, when I looked at it, it doesn't seem to be a statutory change, just a like a real language change, but there wasn't anything for me anyways.
In the summary, it says, men's language comply with House Bill 3204 and Senate Bill
Yeah, but-
767.
So the biggest change to me is this purple highlighted statement, public charter school students, not that we have one, shall not be permitted to participate in district curricular programs. What does that even mean?
I'm also up at related to OSAA, sanctuary activity.
Where are you seeing that?
I'm just reading the little, the footnote.
Oh, in the footnote. Yeah, policy by footnote.
Right.
What is a district curricular program? Somebody please tell me.
You know, I think it'd be in comparison to extracurricular would be all the things non-core academic
So
related.
we don't teach children in public charter schools?
I think it's saying if you go to a public charter school, you then wouldn't be enrolled in a class here because you therefore cannot be enrolled in two schools at once. Would be my understanding of that. You still would be able to participate in any extracurricular. And I think this would go around to Oregon state school funding rules of you can't be enrolled in two public school districts at the same time.
So you can go take my I got a public charter school, it's the district sponsored because they wanted to create an arts school. I don't know why we would do that, but we did. Let's just say we did.
Yeah.
So it's be a specialist in arts, but this arts kid wants to come take physics, advanced physics, which we only offer at CCHS, and that kid can't do it because he preferred to do drama. Even though he's Einstein.
Not lost in the hypothetical. So they're hypothetical. charter-
Hypothetical
There's a
arts
hypothetical charter school
that
in,
focuses on the arts.
in Crook County.
And it doesn't have a
And
heavy
they don't
science
have-
programs.
Okay, then could they come take one class?
Right.
We would most likely, just practically speaking, allow an exception for like a one class. It comes down to ADM issues, so we want to wordsmith that, so we'd still have the flexibility to allow, because I would think like Paldue Charter School, we have students who
But
stop,
they're a private church.
They're,
they're
Are
public,
they public?
yeah,
No public.
yeah. So we allow
It's
kind
more
of.
stupid than.
So we might want to it's a good catch. We might want to wordsmith that so that we still have the flexibility to allow those exceptions. We just don't collect ADM in those sort of situations.
Well, I think that this board, maybe we're changing now, but this board, that as long as I've been on it, has always wanted to collaborate and partner with our charter schools, and I don't want to change that personally.
Yeah.
So this language sounds like it's targeted
It's
at
a,
charter schools, as charter school students.
yeah, it's a good catch because we wouldn't want to lose the flexibility that we currently have. We just don't enroll those students. It's more of like a one-off kind of situation. So we want to wordsmith it so that we still have that flexibility.
And then the very next paragraph, the will not in place of the may. What's wrong with may?
you have to choose. So,
Yeah,
Who says we have to?
right here. the board will need to choose if they,
Well, who wrote that? Some egghead at OSBA. I don't care.
So these are board policies.
It's like you're getting a little more salty the further we go along in this, Scott. Next time I ask to go
I
first,
look like,
going first.
I look like one of Melinda's memos. As you read toward the bottom, they get grumpy.
You got someone that was
first,
ignoring
next
the apostrophes.
Don't bring up apostrophe.
You don't have to choose.
Uh,
You guys get to do whatever you want.
Hey, it's fine, because sometimes you would want to, and
Yes.
sometimes you don't.
And we actually have already had this policy up and you said the same thing. Either that or I'm having deja vu.
That's true.
Yes,
All right,
I
so
bet I have that note somewhere. because- Yeah,
and this, I mean. Okay, we're just gonna go with it. So where Scott was talking about, where it says public charter school students shall not be permitted to participate in district curricular programs. Go to the very beginning of that paragraph. Am I missing the boat here? Public charter school students may, upon request, be allowed to participate in district programs such as physical education, instrumental and vocal music offerings, or selected options if space and materials are available.
I think that goes to this, this loose definition of extracurricular versus curricular programs, but it sounds like we want to dig into this one a little bit, because again, we don't want to lose that flexibility that we have, because especially people are saying that partnership with our charter schools and our private schools is something that we think is really good for all kids, and something we want to not lock ourselves out of.
It's almost implied that section though is the curricular activities, because the very next one is with the apostrophes. Offered before, after, which makes it
Yeah.
extracurricular.
Yeah,
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. I don't know how you enforce this. Because you know what it means. Oh, also, thank you for the Einstein statement about students must adhere to state law, board policies, regulations, rules concerning student conduct and discipline. Duh.
Sometimes you have to put that stuff in there.
What, why wouldn't they? And which board are we talking about? Our board or the charter school board? Cause that's not clear. And are we suddenly regulating the policies of the charter school? Because if that's our board, that's what that means. Which sort of defeats the charter school purpose.
there is a piece of this that, just practically speaking, sometimes, this comes around like student dances and stuff, when we have students participating from outside our district, it is good to have, policy language say, and you still, while you're participating, you do it. So there is a reason to keep that language around, making sure they follow laws in this policy.
So I have a question, and this is not an argument for losing the flexibility. But, and Dr. Tuck, you kind of referred to this, but it's my understanding, once a student goes to a charter school, that state funding follows that
Yeah.
child. And so it sounds like maybe it's not an issue, because it's kind of this one-off, but do you foresee an issue where if the funding's following this kiddo, but then we're putting them in this class that already has a lot of kids, I mean, is that going to a possible challenge, or is it?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's just working with the administrators, I think. And again, it's very outside, but like, we try to be good neighbors, right?
Sure.
And think of what's best for all kids. So if we can make that work, we try to. But again, to your point, that hypothetical where if a class is full and there's no seats in there, then we kind of work through that to the best of our abilities.
I think one of it points to something we talked about at this table these times. And every board member has to decide for themselves. Do you view the role of this board as being to act on behalf of the public schools of Crook County? Or is it the role of this board and its individual board members to act on behalf of every child in Crook County, regardless of where they get their education? What are taxpayers paying us to do? Administer a public school system and administer a quality education, regardless of whether you choose the charter school option or the public school option. That's, those dollars come in and then we decide how to redistribute them to the charter school. And so the board in the past has taken the position that we're responsible for the education of every child in this county, whether he goes to RPA or Pellview Charter, or Crook County School District. And I think that's a political choice for people to make and one you have to grapple with on their own. I know, I favor the all child approach, but it's not the only one.
I think the next policy muddies that a little bit too, for kids who live in our district, but attend virtual public charter schools. What level of responsibility do we have besides tracking where they go?
Yeah.
To add that to it. But yes, I do have the May circled on the last time I brought this policy because you brought that up then, so.
Scott, thinking through your hypothetical too, as we just move on from this one. The issue would come, and it's probably why the OSBA put this language is if one of the public charter schools or the private schools just said, hey, we no longer want to teach math, you guys all go to Crook County School District for your math class. That could put that's probably why they put that provision in there, as that could be a difficult situation for us. But again, we're in these hypotheticals, as of, for my time here, it's always worked fairly well, and we haven't ran into many issues.
Right, maybe the missing piece is we need to put some language in there that says something about, the district, the charter shall reimburse the district for a reasonable cost. ADA utilized, something.
So yeah, it's an interesting topic that is worth revisiting and getting right in policy.
We could calculate it per class cost, and if you're gonna send one of your kids to us, then.
Similar.
Maybe the thing about it too is just to build some flexibility, because it's like, I don't wanna create language and policy around something that's not an issue, but it'd be good just to protect. The ability to revisit it at a later date, because I really like the philosophy of being a good neighbor, right? And looking out for all kiddos, but there is also just the reality of a budget too, and so if we can kind of draw a line of protecting what's working, but also leaving the door open to revisit it if something changes. I think there's wisdom in that.
And the legislature, similarly, when whether outside schools will be able to participate in sports like RPA, when that all was a big deal, the legislature did come in and we do charge the percentage cost to that. So there could be something similar to the academic side. So that precedent has been set in athletics.
I'm a big fail. One more.
You're not.
It's okay.
You just got the most interesting things.
Interesting.
We call them opportunities.
It's fine. I'm good.
They just want you back again. Yeah. That's.
Here. Okay, last one. Right? Okay. We're talking about resident student denial for virtual public charter schools. And there it is. Okay, just some minor changes. Oh, I don't have the right one in front of me. Oh my gosh, I have lost all my things. So this is the one, I can speak off the cuff about this one because I sign these all the time. So this is the one that sets our cap at 3% for admittance for students in our district who want to attend a virtual public charter school, are saying that after 3% of our our enrollment wants to do that, that you as a board or we as a district can deny their ability to do that.
That happen often?
I have never in my 2 years denied a student whether or not we were under or over the 3% that law allows.
I'm not aware in 10 years whether we've ever denied it.
Okay, yeah. I can see, go ahead,
Can I jump in on this?
Yeah. please.
It looks like this is a proposed policy that we currently do not have in place.
That's what I was wondering.
And Scott, I vaguely remember the school board, if this is not a new concept.
We do
Under
have.
law,
Cause I've looked it up.
we have this policy. I know it's in law, that the school board can do this, but I'm.
So that the proposal that maybe we during residential leave.
I don't have that one in front of me.
On our website, we do have LEBE. I'm not seeing.
Okay.
LEBE.
It says on 11/13/23, the first reading at a board meeting, board postpone adoption of the policy to the next board meeting. Is that really legit,
Because we
23?
hated it then.
Thanks. Okay, I'm just making sure I got
I
my,
haven't really changed my mind.
it's not even, like 2 years.
It's not in the policy manual.
No, it's not. We
Okay.
do not, maybe it's that we talked about it.
Right, maybe that's what it is.
Along.
And then at the bottom of the sheet that I sign, there is a little blurb about the 3% that a district may deny
Okay.
of when we have above our 3% cap.
Kind of.
Going to the hypothetical, what would be the reason for
To do-
denying?
well-
Is it a funding thing?
Yeah,
And is that all it is?
It's a protection for districts so that
Okay.
you don't lose too many students.
Right.
And then you don't have enough money to operate the district. But I think my memory is going way back before 2023. And it was, the school board at that time decided to not have this policy. Even though it was something that could protect the district, the decision at that time was, let's not even have this. And so I'm wondering if maybe OSB had noticed that we didn't have it and suggested that we have it. But the board at some point in the past decided that they didn't want it. You, of course, are able to do whatever you want to do, but I'm thinking that that may be why this looks like a completely new proposed policy.
I think the proposed policy allows you to deny it. It doesn't say that you have to deny it.
And maybe we previously decided we do not deny students that want to do that. We never have, so.
There was no point in having the policy.
Yep.
Are you in concurrence with that?
Yeah, I seem to remember a conversation that went along the lines of if you want to retain children in your school district, offer parents a quality school. Not a restriction in law to keep them from going away.
And I don't have it in front of me, but I think the changes on the proposed policy, if I remember reading it, just to talk about the dates with which you decide what your 3% is. So you have to do it twice a year instead of just once a year. So it rolls with October and May. And then it talks about who it is we count to get the 3%. So do we count just students enrolled in our school? Do we count students enrolled in our district who are homeschooled and already attending charter schools? So it defines a little bit of that in there.
But why do we need this policy? What does it do for us? If we never say no to another student going somewhere else, then why do we need this policy to tell us how to say no?
You know, unless you want to start saying no.
I think it gives us an opportunity to recommit that we want to create a quality school system and not have to worry about denying kids leaving. So
By not adopting.
by not adopting it, it gives us that opportunity to not adopt it again. Just throwing it out there.
We can take action on this one. I was sorry, I was reading. I didn't know if it was a taken to the first read or a bring back or a.
Do you already calculate the percentage?
We do.
If you just do it whenever, or is it, you have a set date that you already do that?
Usually we do it October 1st because it coincides with our, we call it our membership date. Is that what we call that? October.
Actually, that happens when somebody drives over one of the.
Sorry. Oh, building just shook. Okay, sorry.
Yes.
Not the tornado.
October 1st is what, do we call that our membership date? Like, we take a lot of, yes. So we take that and then May 1st is kind of that third quarter ADM. We also do, like, that's our chronic absenteeism date. So those are why those dates occur. But yes, we do that.
Okay.
Or I guess I have done that since I have worked here. I guess I thought I had to figure out where we were on our percentage as I'm signing away on it.
Okay. So we can take action on this if we so desire,
Or not.
or not. Thank you.
No action is an action.
Look at you.
Oh,
Been real quiet, Steve. We wondered
Yeah,
if you
Just
still
wanna
were
make sure
there.
you're still there.
it's hard not being there, so I was just listening to everybody. Go ahead.
Okay. Do we have anything further? Steve, do you have anything else?
I do not.
Eric, anything? Scott, anything? Lucy, anything? No. Okay, Ms. Carey, thank you for all of that.
Oh, We'll see you guys again.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay, it is 7:20 and we are gonna adjourn this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Steve.
Congratulations.
Thank you.